right, what do you guys want to talk about? Tires. Yes,
Yeah, that's
we
right.
passed our scrap tire new ordinance. Hopefully this will help us prevent illegal dumping of the tires. It's aimed at the commercial operators. We know we have problems with individuals who, for whatever reason, choose to change their tires at home and dump tires. But we have a big problem with folks who take the money that you pay when you go into a shop and have your tires changed. You have to pay a fee for disposal. They take that money. They hire a company to take those tires to the appropriate recycling facility or depository, and then instead they just go and dump them so they don't end up paying fees at the other end. Then we have to pick them up. Not only does it cost money to the city, but it also means that we have unsightly tires in poor neighborhoods, cluttering the streets and vacant lots, but that also they are breeding grounds for mosquitoes. And any Houstonian knows that we have problems with mosquitoes, and things that we can do to help alleviate that is a good thing as well. So what else do we want to talk
Well,
about?
can you talk about what exactly the ordinance does?
Harry, come on up. Director Hayes.
Good morning. What the ordinance specifically does, it fills in holes that are left from the state level, which is the monitoring of transporters, which are currently not reviewed by the state. And also, we will add 2 positions to do annual inspections and audits to ensure that every tire that is sold within the city of Houston city limits is manifested from the point of origination to a responsible source for final disposal.
So, are there new licenses?
It's the paper trail. It's primarily
Yeah.
a paper trail.
Okay.
Paper trail and then 2 new enforcement officers.
Okay, so does that including licensing or registration
Yes, it
changes?
will. It is a one-time registration fee for the transporter, and then ensuring that we have documentation of the number of vehicles that will be used to transport the units, and that we know what locations the tires are being taken to.
Mr. Hayes, I think a lot of people who live, say, in the Heights or in Meyerland or other nice neighborhoods, they don't see this problem. I mean, your folks get into a lot of neighborhoods around town. How big a problem is this in some neighborhoods?
It's pretty big, and we've shown charts to show where the tires are. Primarily, we find these in the working class neighborhoods. We go out and we collect cleanup at about 12,000 illegal dump sites each year. About 3,500 of them are actually called in and reported, but the staff is proactive. And typically when you have one site that is reported, there are generally 2, 3, or 4 that are around the corner. We have sites where we've gone out and we've made collection of 200, 300, 400 tires in one location. And as was indicated by the public speakers on yesterday, these are not regular citizens that are taking tires off of a vehicle. These are commercial operators that are gaming the system.
What can be done to these folks who aren't abiding by the law? What sort of a hammer is a hammer can be?
Well, the penalty is that if folks are not documenting and manifesting the disposal, the transportation and disposal of tires, then a citation and fines can be imposed upon them.
And how much would that be? Do you know off the top of your head?
To be determined by the judge, but up to $2,000 per violation.
Would that be per tire or per dump?
Per violation.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, can you talk to us about scaffolding from last week, the accident? I guess City of Houston, some major cities have regulations about scaffolding, and I don't think our city does not. Have you ever looked into that, or as a result of what happened last week, is that something
I don't
you
know
think the
what
next mayor would consider, that kind of thing?
I don't know what other cities do. The city of Houston has not historically inspected scaffolding. It is it's an OSHA issue. The scaffolding is inspected on a regular routine basis. In fact, I think it's supposed to be inspected on a daily basis. The developer there is a very experienced developer who follows safety rules rigorously. we're gonna work to discover what actually happened to cause the scaffolding collapse, and then we'll go from there to determine whether there's a need to do any local regulation.
Right now, you don't see an immediate need or over the course of.
I do not see an immediate need, and we have not, until we determine actually what happened. Again, this scaffolding met all federal safety standards and was inspected. We don't know whether some element gave way or what happened, so let us get to the bottom of the situation first. But at this point, we're not planning on taking any action until we get the facts on which to base it.
And can you, for those who don't know, talk to us about what do you mean when you said you guys got a very small tax rollback today?
Because we have a revenue cap at the city of Houston, which limits growth of property tax revenue to 4.5% in this case. The economy was much faster than that, and so in order to make sure that we don't collect tax revenue that's greater than the amount allowed by our charter, we rolled back the tax rate. Doesn't mean that we won't get more revenue. We are going to be getting more revenue, but again, it'll only go up. The revenue to the city will only be able to go up 4.5%, and so I believe it's 9/10 of a penny. It's a little under a penny of rollback.
And do you have a guesstimate of how much it saves?
The
$100,000.
council members were asking about that. I'll have to get that to you. We'll get it to you as soon as we can.
Would that impact, I guess, the next mayor and the budget cycle?
This is a huge problem. $55 million of impact in this current budget, the next budget, more than $100 million of impact. When you have the extreme pressures of burgeoning pension costs and caps on revenue, pension costs are going up a whole lot faster than 4.5%. It puts the city even in more of a squeeze than we've experienced in the past.
Have you voted early yet?
I voted yesterday. So I'm done.
Who'd you vote for? Do you care to share?
I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say.
Mayor,
I'm happy to always say who I didn't vote for, but that's a couple of, I certainly would not vote for a candidate that didn't support our Houston Equal Rights Ordinance, because I think it's a good thing for the economy of Houston.
back on the tax rate, what's the financial impact? In other words, how much money is the city out as a result of this?
We'll get you the exact information, but I think 57 million in the current tax year and more than 100 million the next tax year, because this would be the first time, this current tax year is the first time we really went past, or would have gone past the cap.
I also want to ask you about the idling ordinance. What will this regulate? Tell us what it does.
The anti-idling ordinance would bring us into alignment with most of the other big cities across America, and certainly here in the state of Texas. Because we have the Port of Houston, a lot of trucks roll through this city, and we love them. It's a good part of our economy. And we also have a number of school districts, and we have school buses. And while those trucks and buses are operating, we understand it's a hot climate. You want to run the air conditioning. But what happens, a lot of buses and trucks wait for kids to come out, wait for their trucks to be loaded, and the drivers keep their engines on and just let them idle. And that pumps pollution into the air. It's a particular problem in areas around our port, which already have impacts from the refineries, from industry, but it's also becoming problematic in those areas where lots of kids congregate with buses. So around our museums, for example. And so this is a request that has come from a number of parts of town, a number of areas. We've vetted our ordinance with industry, with the big fleet operators. Again, we're not plowing new ground here. This is something that most other big cities have already done. And there is a current city policy against idling, but this actually gives us an enforcement mechanism. That we'll start with, as we always do with a new ordinance, we'll start with education. But the goal is, and private citizens ought to do this as well. If you're going to be sitting for more than a minute or two, you're using fuel and you're polluting our air, turn the engine off.
What do you say, truck drivers, other people, I think they see this on TV and say, what the hell, it's hot out there, why can't I run the air conditioner?
Yeah,
What
we
do you say?
recognize that it's hot out there, but I have to breathe the pollution that you put into the air. Our kids have to breathe the pollution that you put in the air, particularly in those areas where we have a large concentration of big vehicles that are pumping pollution out into the air. This is a direct health impact, and this is something simple that we can all do together. Part of the discussion, I know, as we were contemplating this, is say you're a bus driver and you know your kids are going to be in this program for a minimum of an hour or 2 hours. You've got to work with the schools to say, okay, that bus driver shouldn't have to stay with the bus. They ought to be able to come in. They ought to be able to keep cool. This is about doing the right thing for those employees, but also doing the right thing for the environment.
Mayor, there's a lot of exceptions on the ordinance. How much of a difference will it make? I mean,
This is as much about community education as it is about direct enforcement. A lot of what we do in these environmental areas is to try to move people to a thoughtful consideration of the impact they're having.
And it would apply to city vehicles as well. I can't tell you how often I go to fire scenes and the guys in the fire trucks just leave the engines running all the time. It would apply to everybody, right?
It would apply to everybody. We did not exempt the city. Unless, again, fire scenes, as long as they have to have access to their radios, and sometimes they have to keep the engines, to be able to power everything without running down the system.
and it's only trucks and buses, correct? But large vehicles.
It's done by weight.
It's by weight, it's
yeah.
like multi-axle vehicles, I believe.
It's not your pound.
Over 14,000 pounds. So larger trucks, buses. It's not aimed at passenger vehicles. Although, again, we've been saying for a long time, if you're sitting at a waiting for a train, turn your engine on. No one wants to breathe that. Anything else?
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.